Welcome, everybody, to the Too High McFly movie podcast. Thank you guys for giving us a listen and choosing us as your podcast today. My name is Kevin Lyons.
I'm Jose Ramos.
And this weekend, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, starring Keanu Reeves, directed by Chad Stahelski, opened up this weekend and is the third installment of the John Wick series. We saw it. We're going to talk about it and break it down for you after the intro music. But first, I kind of want to just talk about Keanu Reeves and give a full appreciation because he has earned his spot as like an action star hero. You know, I mean, it started off, we got to see him grow as an actor. He first came into our lives as our best friend, Ted from Bill and Ted's.
Yeah.
And then he started getting into the action game with Point Break. He's like a young, fresh cadet, and he's out there for the FBI. And then he goes into Speed, and he's like the full-blown action star. And then to top that all off, we have The Matrix, and that was just a mind fuck. It was so crazy. And it's nice to see him come back as just a regular raw action hero without all the CGI from The Matrix, without all those visual. I mean, of course they use visual effects in John Wick. They did some shit you can't really do, but just the overall style. He almost feels like a worn down action hero, and it's different for Keanu. Because when you look at all these action stars like Schwarzenegger, anybody else, I don't know, just Arnold came to mind, but they all started off as action heroes, and Keanu has like earned it through over time, and he's just a different style of dude.
And it fits with his John Wick character, as you mentioned. With Speed, he was that young hotshot, even like in character, and then now he's older. I mean, he's 50, 51.
Yeah.
As an actor. So then John Wick is towards the end of his line as an assassin. And like you said, he's grizzled. He's retired, getting forced back in the game. So it kind of fits.
And the element that they chose to bring John Wick to us, which is a revenge story from a puppy. Mm-hmm. that his deceased wife had given to him.
It's not just a puppy.
It's not just a puppy, but I mean, it felt like that was the Keanu thing. That's what he would be an action star for, avenging not just a dog, a puppy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it gets you on his side immediately, like you needed to, because he's Keanu Reeves. But it was just, man, it was so great. Seeing him as an action star. So thank you, Keanu Reeves. I mean, that's the kind of actor that you never hear a bad thing about. People just always talk about these awesome things that he's done when he doesn't even think people are looking, And
it's funny because if you look up Keanu, all you see is comments like, make sure we protect Keanu. He's a national treasure. We don't deserve Keanu. That's just comments like that. They're like, make sure he's safe.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. The actor who's just like probably never gotten a haircut since Speed.
Yeah, I saw an interview with him recently. Well, it was to promote John Wick 3. And he was... why can't I think of the talk show? It was the guy that used to be on The Daily Show. He was one of the correspondents. Colbert.
Oh, Colbert.
Yeah, he was on Colbert. And whatever, they're doing the regular promotional things, talking about the movies, joking around. And then Colbert asked jokingly, well, at least I assume it was jokingly, a pretty serious, deep question. He was like, what do you think happens to us after we die?
And Keanu had an answer.
And Keanu
had the most Keanu
didn't miss
answer.
The beat. He was like, I'm not sure this is the exact quote, but it was the vicinity of this. I just know that the people who love us will miss us. And Colbert just like, I didn't expect you. Like his face was like, I didn't expect you to answer that. And the crowd was quiet and they were like, oh. He was just like, wow, okay. And like shook his head.
Yeah.
But it was like, that's Keanu.
He's so humble. You know what I mean? I also heard him explain what his name meant. I guess it derives from Hawaiian. I think his father's Hawaiian. And he's like, what does the name Keanu mean? He's like, cool breeze over a mountain. It's just like, that is exactly what Keanu is. But anyway, he gave us John Wick, and I think it's such a great, his own franchise of action hero. And he's also coming back for Bill and Ted's 3. They're doing Bill and Ted 3.
Yes, that they were talking about that in there. So
And real quick before we get the intro music, just why I love the idea that they're making the Bill and Ted's 3, because usually when they try to bring back a franchise, it's a studio that's spearheading it, that's just throwing money at it just to make it happen, and those never do good. But Bill and Ted's, like the original creators, and Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, they've been wanting to do this for a while, so it's coming from the people who brought us the original. They're like, there is another story that we need to tell with these guys. And also, I mean, if you look at the meaning behind Bill and Ted, the director said, if the only thing I can walk away from accomplishing this movie is be excellent to each other, I mean, that's pretty awesome. And I think that right now is a great time for Bill and Ted, and it's coming full circle with his career, you know?
Yeah, and I hope so too. So, you know, John Wick is basically a second action trilogy so far, but I feel it's as a whole a stronger trilogy than what The Matrix was.
Yeah.
You know, Matrix kind of fizzled out as it went on. So here he is later in his career going back to an action trilogy and doing it better.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered that part of our intro. What do you say, Jose? You ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
Whoa. Okay, Jose, out of our group of friends, I feel that you love action movies the most. You've seen them all, and you really got me excited for John Wick 3, because I remember after I saw the sequel, the first time I saw the sequel, I was just like, it's all right. It just didn't have that weight that the first one did because the puppy died. But I just want to ask you, what do you feel are the elements that make a great action movie?
Well, some of the things is that adrenaline rush that you get. And for the good action movies, it's something you get for a good portion of the movie. It's not just one good action scene here and one good action scene there. It's like throughout the movie. So like your Mission Impossibles, your Raid Redemption is another one that's good. The whole John Wick series. So it's one of those, you got rising stakes throughout it. You start edging in this, the edge of your seat. You start, hitting your fists together when someone does like a good move, like a crazy kill. It's like, let's do it. And it's like there's a certain level of suspension of belief. You can't have a good action movie without a suspension of belief to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But it's not taking it extreme enough where it takes you out of the movie, where it's just like, okay, that's too far.
Yeah.
Like you see, and then you've seen the trailer for the new like Hobbs and
of course, they played that before this one.
Yeah, you've got two cars hooked together. Tied to a helicopter, and The Rock is single-handedly holding the helicopter down. And he doesn't even have the Captain America serum. He's like, that's too much.
It is, like, but they know it, and I think that's what they're calling Idris Elba he is a black Superman.
Yeah,
that's just you're right. I mean, but I do appreciate those types of action movies because they're almost in a way poking fun of themselves. You can see that there's a lot of comedy in that, but
it is at this point because I mean the whole series. I mean, technically, if you put this within the Fast and the Furious, because it is within that world, this will be movie number 9. So it's like they have to keep coming up with things to like top each other over again. But you have a series that's also extended for a long period of time in Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
and that keeps topping itself, but without going to that length.
Yeah, you're right. Keeping the believability is an important factor. Yeah. Even when they do that, you can look at those things and be like, it wouldn't really happen like that. But, it's a movie.
Yeah, keeping it close enough that you're like, all right.
Another good thing, too, is like, especially with that action, is telling the story throughout the action, which I felt like the John Wick series did really good because it really gives you an insight on his character and just the way that all the events relate to each other from one to the next and how they get through them. And with characters that you like. I mean, they did a lot of backstory. I mean, not a lot of backstory, but they gave you enough of John Wick's character in the first movie to really get on his side. I mean, you just show him in mourning with his wife and getting him in the new puppy, and so you feel for him that he's left this assassin life. And they did that without showing us his assassin life beforehand, really. I mean, it almost feels like Darth Vader in the original trilogy. We never got Prime Vader. We got Vader afterwards, after his Prime. And that's why I felt like we got John Wick. And I would love to see, like, John Wick Prime. because that would just be that'd be an awesome fucking movie too.
If this is him when he's lost a step,
Yeah.
what the hell was he before?
But anyway, so yeah, let's just talk about John Wick Chapter 3. Why don't you take us off with the story, Jose?
Well, I mean, it's a very basic premise. Continues right after part 2, immediately after, where he's been declared excommunicado, and he's got an hour to get pretty much his affairs in check in here. So you see him running through the city. You've got all these people trying to get him. So basically, the whole premise of the story is he's cashing old debts from his time in service in order to try to get a pardon from the one who stands above the table.
Yeah, it was a giant chase. That's not just a good action movie, it's also a good adventure movie. And I felt like they put a lot of adventure in this movie with that aspect alone.
Yeah, because no matter where he turned, there was danger. He couldn't even go to the library in peace.
Yeah, that scene was fucking dope, dude. That was so cool.
You know, that when I watched in the theater, when that character came out, a bunch of the people in the crowd kind of cheered.
Yeah.
Because you know who that is?
No, who's that guy?
His name is Boban. He is a basketball player, and he actually played for the Clippers recently.
Okay.
And he was a fan favorite in LA for the Clippers before they traded him to the 76ers. So when he came out, a lot of people recognized him. They're like, Boban! So I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, and now that you mentioned that, I also, because I saw this weekend by myself, because that was nobody else was available to go see it last night. But it had a big crowd reaction while I was watching the movie, more than most action movies. Like, it was almost like superhero level. People were laughing and cheering, and it was just like the audience was kind of getting involved in this movie. And I was actually kind of shocked. I didn't expect that, you know?
I think a lot of that was with the oh shit moments.
Yeah,
this had a lot of oh shit. It was like, oh shit, that happened.
Yeah.
Like,
but mainly that action scene that you're talking about in the library when he's facing that big guy and he's just beating the shit out of him with a book. Like, who else would think that? It's so crazy. Just think. Oh, do you remember what book that was that he was holding?
it was some Russian like folklore book, I think. It had a long name. I remember when he goes up to the table and he's just like, I was like, "Are you speaking English anymore?" Like,
No, wait, no. That was John Wick's book, but the
Yeah.
book that he beat him with, wasn't that the other guy had a book too? The big guy. I remember seeing that.
but
I'm like,
he puts that down. He beats him with that book, which is why it has the blood on it when he puts it back into the
gotcha.
shelf.
Okay. But yeah, that was an awesome scene, and it goes with the story that we're talking about.
Yeah.
How there's just different.
And one good thing I liked about the story is that it stood consistent with who John Wick has been. You know,
Yeah.
he was the Baba Yaga, the boogeyman. Everyone fears him. And he left that life because he fell in love with someone.
Mm-hmm.
So just think someone who grew up as an assassin, trained as an assassin, you have to be pretty emotionless and pretty cold.
Yeah.
So this whole love thing is new to him, which is why he was the puppy. He took it to such an extreme because
Yeah.
this was so new for him. So his understanding of emotion and love is not the same as a regular like person. And here, his motivation to survive was he wanted his wife to live on through his memory.
Yeah,
like
that was
that's how
really
he
cool.
understood it. And like you look at it and you're like, that's a stupid reason. But if you look at it through his eyes,
It makes sense.
this is it. This is the only thing he's known besides killing was his wife, that he wants to hold on to it.
Yeah. And I also feel a lot of it had to do with it wasn't just a puppy. It was the act of this evil type of lifestyle affecting something so innocent you can't really think, I mean, other than a baby, but like a puppy was a really good example. And it's just, he's not an assassin. He's just using those skills for the good. Like, hey, listen, you can't do this shit. You say, oh, it's just a puppy. But yeah, look what just a puppy got you. Someone like me fucking kicking your ass and killing you with fucking any object in the room.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
And if you look at it, at this point when this movie is going, the puppy that was a gift from his wife, gone.
Yeah.
The house that he shared with his wife, gone.
Yeah.
All he has left from
that
his
memory,
wife
yeah.
is his memories and
Yeah,
his
that's
thoughts.
true. That's a really good point. Yeah, so let's move on to. Is there anything else about the story before we get
No,
on
I
to
think
the
that pretty
world
much
building?
covers it. It was a very basic
Yeah.
story, so that covers the overall of it.
The world building I thought was really good because I'll admit the previous movie, John Wick Chapter 2, that one, the world building is what kind of threw me off a little bit because it felt like everybody was an assassin. Everybody on the planet was assassin at the end of that movie. It's just like it does that disbelief that you were talking about. I'm like, really? Everybody's an assassin? Like the entire park just like froze and all looked at John Wick. I'm like, no fucking way. But then in this movie, they really pushed that. And I felt like the general public was just background. It was really cool because I remember in one action sequence, they were in that big train station. And and John Wick stabbing guys, and they're right there, and everybody is just walking along like nothing is happening. So it just really feels like they're in this background, and all these assassins is like its own stylized world in a way, and I thought that was really cool.
And I agree with you. I actually had a note on that. I feel part of the world building and what it's creating in the Wickverse,
Yeah.
it is here, is that you see things like the currency and like what they do for a living
Yeah.
seems to be recognized and accepted by the general public. This isn't a secret society like in there. Everyone seems to be aware, and I think that's why the public is not reacting. If you notice, he runs into random people and they know him by name.
Yeah, that's
They're
just
like,
something
yes,
so crazy.
yes, Mr. Wick. The coins are accepted. Like certain people, yeah, they work within the service, but I don't think like the taxi driver works in there. So I think within the world, they're not in the shadows. They know about it. There's rules, there's order, and it's accepted. So when someone gets killed like that by an assassin, no one bats an eye.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, there was a contract. I'm not going to get involved.
It's almost like when you go to these cities and there's like the mob that has gone all over the place. The regular citizens, they know about the mob. They know not to fuck with it, and they give respect to the people who are in it. That's what it was more of that taxi driver.
Yeah.
I mean, he very well could have been an assassin, but it's almost just like that world is so known, but nobody talks about it, that he just like brought. Of course, you bring John Wick's dog to the fucking concierge if he asked you to. But you brought up a good point about the gold coins, their currency. I mean, it was a really good choice that they used gold, but I wonder what they went into this a little bit in the movie, but I wonder what makes those actual coins so special, because they were talking about how they had the first ones and the markers like ever minted. It was almost in like an award, like a trophy room, and I wonder what makes that currency so special. Do you know?
I think it's just because it's specific to that world, that organization in there. No services or any of that stuff can be provided without those coins.
Yeah.
So there's a value to it. And then the marker is because within their rules, that is sacred.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So any debt that someone owes, if there's a marker involved, it has to be under their rules. It has to be validated no matter what.
Yes.
So it's beyond law.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they did it was really cool. I was just like, I just want to know more about it. That's how well they did it. You know?
I mean, look at in Halle Berry's character, for example. They had the marker there, and even though it was absolutely a no benefit to her, same thing with Wick in Part 2, and it was a no benefit. He had already finished his vengeance of the puppy, but because of that marker, he had to do it.
Yeah, and it wasn't just because of the marker. I mean, I think I rewatched John Wick 2 the other night. I thought the guys who brought the marker back to him was just like, you got out, but you did dip your toes back in and you came back into this world, and that's why I'm bringing you this marker.
Yeah, because the guy wasn't going to redeem it,
Yeah.
but he could have
Yeah.
if he wanted to.
But he said the only reason why he did it is because John Wick came back. And when you're back, you're back. And you wanted to be out, you out. You just take that loss that those people gave you by killing your puppy and not burning your house, but stealing your car.
Yeah. And on the world building thing, I think what was good with it is that they expanded more on the organizational pecking order. So now, you have your assassins, you've got your managers of the continentals
Yeah.
in there.
The high table
Yeah.
controls all them.
Exactly. You have the underworld that's under even them. And
Yeah.
you have the high table, and then you have the elder.
Yeah, that
which
was
is above even. That was new to this.
And by the way, can I just say that when they brought that element into it, they also brought the element of adventure into it. It felt very Lawrence of Arabia when they were there. That was like even the look and feel of all the desert stuff felt like the epic Lawrence of Arabia movie. Just even the way that they color graded it, it felt like it was like a 60s film epic brought to us in modern times. It was really cool.
And it was so different than everything else in the movie. Everything else was night, dark, rainy.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge contrast.
And because a lot of these movies, the John Wick series, it's never really left New York that much. I mean, I think in the second one, I think he went overseas a little bit, but this one really made it feel much more international. And it just made it feel like a bigger adventure rather than just a straight action movie, which I thought was really cool. So speaking of which, let's get into some of the visuals and the action and stuff. Do you want to talk about the visuals?
Yeah, let's get into visual. Overall, I loved what they did with lighting.
Yeah.
In this movie, most of it takes place in the dark, or at night. But you could still see exactly what was happening. But one of my favorite parts here, and I noticed this a lot with Zero's group, him and his students.
Okay.
Is
Zero. That's the sushi chef guy,
Yeah,
right?
that's the fan.
Oh my god,
That's the super fan.
those guys were like the icing on the cake for me. They were so awesome.
But what I liked is I noticed when they were attacking the Bowery, when they attacked Wick at the end, and then also when they were attacking I forget their name, but the Russian underground.
Oh, okay.
When they were attacking the director's place
At the theater.
is the way they played with shadow and
Yeah.
lighting to mask the people. They were there the whole time.
Yeah, very Batman.
Yeah. So you know, he has his hood down. You can't see him. He just like lifts his head and you see the face. He was freaking crouched in the corner on top of a locker that whole time. You never notice him until he stabs someone.
Yeah.
And then they did one without shadow on Zero when they were out in the balcony.
Yeah.
And you've got these different color like flashing lights and someone's getting killed. And as soon as his body drops, you notice he's been there the whole time against the wall, but you're like camouflaged against the wall. So I thought that was a lot of good visual stuff.
Yeah, they were trained by Batman and Michael Myers, just creeping in the shadows. But it was really good, man. The visuals were really stunning. I love the cinematography, but I felt like that really helped with the action. It went one with the action, and the action in this movie, man, that was just so incredible to see. Just their extended fight sequences. I love it when John Wick's when he was what's it called? When they ban you.
Excommunicado.
Yeah, excommunicado. Yeah, when that tick went down to zero, and then he was being chased by that group of bad guys, and they're chasing him through the building, and he goes up to. It looks like he's in some type of museum of armory, and he locks the door, and he's just looking at all the guns, and it felt very Western when he's taking out the 6-shooters, and he's like, oh shit, I can hear them coming, and it's not working correctly, so he's taking them apart. And
Yeah, the bullet doesn't fit.
Yeah, the bullet doesn't fit, and he's taking them apart, and he's putting them all together. And put it together, all for one bullet from that one first guy comes out, and it had that like a Western.
He even shot it from the hip.
Yeah, he was like, and it sounded like a Western. You know what I mean? And then that action sequence after all that, they had did they go right into the knife? Yeah, they went right into the knife fight.
That's my one of two highlight action fighting sequences was this one with the knives.
Oh man, I would like to say that this is probably the best knife fighting sequence in any movie that's ever been made. That was fucking so cool to see, and the pace of it just didn't stop. It was just kept on going and more ridiculous and more knives and more just like grabbing them from the cases, breaking them and just throwing them. Dude, it was fucking so adrenaline inducing, awesome. Like I just couldn't believe it.
And at this point, we're only like 15 minutes into the movie.
This is like his bounty just went up.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. It's just to see the way they reacted is different. Usually in these type of movies, they might grab a couple things around them, but they're just going at each other. But here, these characters are like, there's a bunch of fucking knives around us. Like, why am I gonna try to fight you? Grab these knives, and they're just grabbing as many as they can. And he's taking his hits, but he's coming back, and the brutality of that. And that was just after the first kill of the movie, which is the book kill, where that was brutal too.
You know what this was? This felt like, you know how you have like rock operas? I felt like this was an action opera of like fight scenes going from different levels of fighting to different like scenarios and genres, like we were talking about that. This felt like an action opera, and it was really cool just to revel in all that action scenes. I mean, when they do fan service for stuff, sometimes it can be like, oh yeah, there was just fan service, but this is something action fans could just sink their teeth into, and just regular moviegoer fans,
And I agree with that. When you have a movie that has as much action as this, I would say like over 80% of the movie is like straight action. You can fall into a trap of it actually getting boring when you're seeing this stuff over again. What this movie did is it added so much variety in the types of fights. So you had the knife fight, you had a horse fight, you had motorcycle fights. So it changed the type of fighting that was happening, and then also the variety of the creativity they were using to kill some of these people.
Yes.
Again, you had a horse kill a person.
But the horse kicks. Oh my god, dude!
The creativity here,
and I love it because when they give you that first big horse kick, it was really cool. But you didn't think they were going to use it again, and John Wick does it 2 more times. But speaking of this, when you're talking about using action in different ways, that's going to come to my favorite aspect of the movie, which was Halle Berry's involvement and her dogs.
My second favorite action scene,
dude. That like first of all, Halle Berry does not age. I don't know how she looks exactly as she does as the first time I've seen her in a movie. She looks exactly the same. And her action scenes were so believable. I know that you've seen a bunch of behind the scenes stuff of her training and shooting.
She trained for about 6 months. Not only did she train for 6 months, she trained with those dogs for about 6 months. So they actually were listening to commands from her.
Yeah.
Because they taught her commands with it, to the point where Keanu was telling a story how after she trained for a while, he met up to work with her and the dogs.
Yeah.
And they told she was comfortable with the dogs, petting them and everything, but they told him, don't look the dogs in the eyes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right.
Because they were just comfortable with her.
Yeah. Oh, man. And you know what? It's so funny because we had recently watched Catwoman. And for those of you who are listening, we have this segment, a new segment called This Is Bad, where we all get together and we watch notoriously bad movies and then we make fun of it. And first segment we did with Catwoman, and that movie was just ridiculous. And it's so cool seeing her redeem her as an action star in this, which is really cool, man. You could tell that she was doing a lot of those stunts. Of course, these people are using stunt people, and mainly for insurance purposes. But it's nice to know that they're putting in the effort to make it as believable as possible by learning all these moves and just, oh man, it was just so cool seeing her jump over a table while her dogs are going over the table and just sicking them onto dudes' nuts, and just, dude, it was so fucking
And that was part
dope.
of the variety. It was cool. Keanu actually spoke to that. He was like, I don't do stunts, but I do as much action as possible. And he actually got into what the difference was to him. He was like, if there's fighting, I'm going to do the fighting, the jumping, the kicking, the getting hit. That's the action. He's like, the stunt is getting hit by your car or falling off a building. Yeah. He's like, that's stunt people come in for that one.
And that's the insurance company saying, we ain't going to let you do it, Keanu.
Exactly. So, they're doing all their own action, even if they're not doing the possibly dangerous stunts.
Yeah, but it also gives these wonderful stunt people like their time in the sun. I mean, like, that's why they're stunt people, especially with superhero movies like the Avengers. I saw a meme recently that showed all the Avengers from Endgame, but they're stunt doubles and they're all just waiting. It's like, hey, let's give a round of applause for these guys, because first of all, it's giving them a job, and second, it's just letting them do what they do. It's really cool to see that.
Yeah, and one good thing about the stunts is the people working on Wick that are bringing it to us.
Yeah.
They were ex-stunt people.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think that's why they pride themselves so much in this action and making sure the action looks good, because this is the world they came from, is doing that. before we move on from the action, the fighting, I really appreciated the fights. One of the things that's kind to annoy me over the years when it comes to fight scenes is quick cuts. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I just let them fight, especially when you see some good quality martial arts movies. Where it just looks like they're playing patty cake.
Yeah,
quick.
every single punch or move gets its own shot, and they just quick shot it, so it's not a fluid action scene.
Yeah, and that's just not as entertaining for me to watch visually. So it did a lot of wide angle shots, and like you said, extended scenes. You're able to see those fights, and I really appreciate that. The other thing I liked that this movie did, which tends to be a complaint in a lot of action movies, like horror movies, where you're just like, there's no way you should have still had ammo. You have never reloaded ever. And what I liked about this is, I'm sure if you actually track it, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but they made it. I forget what I'm trying to say, but basically what they did is they made it a point to show you them picking up ammo.
Yeah.
When they killed someone, they took ammo from them. They were reloaded constantly. That scene with Halle Berry and Wick and their team up, they're constantly reloading the guns, and you see Wick do it throughout the entire movie. And that's something a lot of movies don't add. But it makes a difference.
And the way that they first started off doing that was with that first big action sequences involving the gun when he's putting that old Western 6-shooter together just for one shot. That's as much effort that he had to do to get one bullet. But again, when you're talking about that, the reloading, one of the things that really caught my eye that I really liked was in the third act when they're finally at the Continental, because the Elder gave John Wick, all right, I'm going to take away your excommunicado, but you got to go kill Winston, the guy who's the manager of the Continental. And John Wick cuts off his finger. It's so funny that they just know all these rules. Like they just put a random table in front of him with a couple of tools, and John Wick just knew he had to cut his ring finger off. It was just like, what the fuck? But anyway, he goes back there. And he has the opportunity to go kill Winston, and Winston's just like, hey, the way that, I forget exactly what he said, but it was a really cool point to bring up.
He basically said, he was like, do you want to die being a man, or live being like an assassin?
Yeah. Exactly, because you're not going to honor your wife's memory by doing it this way. And he just handed him the gun. It's like, it's up to you, old friend. He's like, I would rather die from my friend than being hunted down by an evil organization. He said that. And so he just handed him the gun. And then that's when like the table's hand comes down, and she's just like,
adjudicator.
Yeah, are you going to kill him? No. He's like, no, I'm not, bitch. and so it was now it was John, the Winston, and the concierge, who I'm so glad they finally gave this guy action shit to do, because you always wondered about him. He's so calm and collected, but he knows about the world.
You knew he can fuck shit
up. And I was really glad to see him in lockdown. They have like his whole, like he has a safe room with a big like actual safe door, and he's locked in. And they're getting when they realized that they needed bigger ammo, because all these guys coming into the Continental, they all have like bulletproof armor, and so they get the shotguns, and he's like, armor piercing buckshots. And he's like, okay. And of course, shotguns, you only have like 2 or 4, shots depending on it. And so you just see them all with like all the bullets, and how fast John Wick could load it. Remember when he would
the
run
shotgun
out?
shells.
The shotgun shells. That's when we were talking about reloading. That's what brought me into this long tirade of an explanation. But it's just like, as soon as he'd run out, you just see him, just like how he could just as like a well-oiled machine. He was just like throwing shotguns. And I've loaded a shotgun before. I have friends who've taken me to like targeting and stuff, and that shit's fucking tough, man, to get it in there correctly.
Like he was being able to load a slug mid punch. So he'll punch, load, punch, shoot.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that was freaking crazy. But yeah, that's the way they worked the ammo in this, I really appreciated it.
And that goes into one of the aspects that I wish that they did more in the John Wick series, and they talked about it a lot, about what John Wick's expertise is that he is hyper focused, right? That's why he's such a good assassin. But throughout this trilogy, we always pick up on him, and he's like been shot 3 times, and he's like limping away, and he's still taking out a bunch of bad guys. They never really showed us like visually how his focus for him works, so we can understand why he's so great. But I mean, it's moments like that, like how he can load the shotgun while he's punching a guy. Like that's that hyper focus I wanted to see more of throughout the trilogy. But yeah, man, that was fucking cool. And it ends with they're finally on top of the roof, and Winston is talking to the lady from the high table, and they're making it was basically a whole negotiation. That's what it was.
Parlay.
Yeah, a parlay. And part of it was like, what about John Wick? And he's just like, well, I guess we have to kill him. And he just starts shooting John Wick. But he knew he had a bulletproof suit. That's the thing. You could see them bounce off, and he knows that they have bulletproof suits, and that he would probably survive the fall off the building because he's John fucking Wick. And then John Wick is brought to Morpheus.
Yeah.
It's so cool how Matrixy that was.
Bowery.
Down to the Bowery, and the movie's ending off like we're ready for another one, and that's what I love about it, because now it went full Matrix on this ending. Keanu being brought to what's his name? The actor. Why can't I think of
Fishburne.
Fishburne. That's oh my god. Why can't I think of Lawrence Fishburne? He's brought to him down in the Bowery, and he's even sitting in that chair like Morpheus did when he gave him the choice of the pills and stuff. And it's just like, all right, are you mad? And he's like, yeah, I'm mad. I'm pissed. And then the dog's just sitting there happy on the couch, and it's just like, man, I can't wait to see that movie now. I wonder where they're gonna go. So do you think that they're gonna come up with another one, or is John Wick done?
No, I think they say they have a lot of ideas to
Okay.
go. So not only, and this was going to be on my final thoughts, but like not only can they continue this, because in this one it was John on the run,
Yeah.
trying to save his life.
Yeah.
The next one, it seems like it's going to be John going to war. Now he's not running anymore.
Yeah, it
He's-
feels like they're fighting the machines,
He's
and they're going to go after the high table and the elder and all that shit.
So you probably see him. Of course, he's teaming up with the Bowery and the TikTok man.
Yeah.
But then I think he's gonna team up with the Zero's 2 surviving students.
Yeah, I think
they
so,
gave
too.
him respect, and he kept them alive.
Yeah.
And then Sophia, because she's gonna be in trouble. She helped him.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna get a nice little crew going.
You just reminded me of one of my favorite aspects of the movie is the sushi chef guys.
Yeah.
Oh my god, because they were the most formidable forces that he basically faced in this movie. Everybody else was easy to take down. And when you see them get into the action scenes, because you built them up throughout the whole movie, how these guys were like fucking ghosts. These are like the fucking henchmen that to be feared. And then, they get into the fight with John Wick, and they're chasing him to the Continental, and finally he just touches the Continental right when the guy's about to kill him, and the concierge comes out, and he stops him, and he's just like, he's on Continental grounds. And he's just like, God damn it! And so he's like, come see the manager. And they both go in, and they're both sitting on the couch, and the guy just comes and sits right next to Keanu, really awkward, and that's when he breaks his character. It's just like, huge fan, by the way. I'm your greatest student.
This is the type of guy that doesn't skip a urinal when you're in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He goes right next to you.
Yeah. Oh man, that was so funny, and it brought a new level to those types of formidable evil guys, because of course a lot of these action assassins in movies, they have no personality. It's just kill. And seeing them have honor, whenever that guy's students, when they were fighting John Wick, both of them together, and they both got him down, and they didn't kill him, and they just kind of showed him respect. They're like, nice to meet you, Mr. Wick.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just stood up and let him get back up to fight them again. And it was just and Keanu's just like, what the fuck? All right. And he's doing it. And then it's because John Wick was killing the other guys.
Yep.
And then when they stopped him and they let him up, and then John Wick starts fighting, and he's about to kill both of them, and he just lets them. He's just like, I'll be seeing you.
Yeah.
And he sees the guy up, the bald guy, the head, and he's just like, he just winks and nods to him, and then they continue to try and kill each other.
Because when he killed the first 2 students in there, which were the sneaky ones,
Yeah.
these are the ones that are coming out of the shadows, and they played with that again.
Yeah.
When he killed those 2, again he looks up at Zero, which is their leader, and he claps it up,
Yeah.
and then he gives him a thumbs up. So he just killed your students, but he's like, oh my god.
He's like, John Wick just killed my students.
Yeah.
Oh my god! All right, that was cool.
And yeah, I agree with you. Adding the element that this was a rabid fan of John Wick,
Yeah.
who was just killing him because he wanted the chance to take on the best. This was his idol.
Yeah, and he knew that when he finally died, when John Wick finally got him, and he's like, "Where are you going? I'll be up. Give me a minute." He's like, "No, you won't," and then he just dies. But it was just cool to have that moment. I really liked that. It made those fight sequences have a lot more at stake because you didn't know how it was gonna go. You know, they're all trying to kill each other, but they have this respect for one another, and it was just cool to see that.
And John Wick gave him that because the whole time John Wick is just kind of pushing him off like that annoying fan. He's like, no, we're not alike, blah, 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 the whole time. And after he defeated him and he's there, and he's like, hey, John, that was a good fight, right? And he gave it to him. He's like, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
And so he gave him that final moment. You see him smile.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like he was so happy. That
They
he was
really
gonna
did
die.
bring the honor to assassins in this movie, and it was really cool to see. It was something new that you never really see in anything else. And that was really wonderful, especially with now let's just talk about all the performances really quick. Everybody just performed so well in this movie.
Yeah, this role works very well for Keanu, so that's good. My highlights were Halle Berry as Sophia
She was so great.
and Mark Dacascos, I think that's his name, as Zero.
Yeah.
Which was just a fan. Those two were my highlights. And then the ones that were just still great from the other ones were Ian McShane as Winston
Oh yeah, he's so great.
and Lance Reddick as the concierge.
Yeah. Oh man, dude, I'm so glad that he made it through this movie. He was quickly one of my favorite characters, even from the first movie. He was so awesome. It was really cool, and I love how they just constantly have the dog theme in this, and I love how they're bringing dogs back to action movies. And John Wick's dog, I mean, like, because you had Halle Berry, she had trained like fucking killer dogs, and then John Wick just has this pit bull who's supposed to be these species are looked at as just evil dogs, and he's just a nice little puppy. Every once in a while he just looks over and is like, good dog, yeah, you're a good dog, good boy, good. Like that dog must be feeling so great when Keanu Reeves is calling you good boy. You know what I mean? It was just cool, and I really hope that they make more of these.
I know, and I feel that goes into, we were talking about the world building earlier, but I think the world building opened it up for possible spin-offs on top of continuing of the story. So you have a spin-off you could do with Sophia, who seems very formidable, and her story with her daughter, that's something they can dive into.
I actually felt like that would be a big plot point if they're going to make another one.
Yeah. And the other thing is we saw the director and her underground Russian organization, which we find out in this, that's where John Wick came from as an orphan brought from Russia.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Yeah, he trained under them. And she has two groups. She has like the males training as like wrestlers and fighters, and the females training as ballerinas. But I'm guessing they're all training towards being assassins themselves. So that's something that they can address with that organization and in the assassins they breed.
And it really gave a lot of insight into John Wick's fighting style, how it is like a dance, and that's how they were training people, because you got to be fluid, you got to be able to know beats, you got to be able to anticipate what your partner's going to go, where their body movement is going, and how that's going to give you the upper hand. And they showed that a lot, because when Keanu's walking by and he sees the training room with all the young guys, they're doing all the John Wick moves. That's like when he wraps his legs around your neck and he does like that little flip bringing you down. That was like John Wick's classic move. How he's just like a fucking spider monkey, just using every limb to tackle everybody. It's really cool.
What I thought it was funny, speaking of that scene when he first arrives, is they of course check for weapons, and he puts down his cross and all of that, and they look at him, they're like, the belt too.
Yeah.
Like they're making him leave his belt, and then you kind of laugh while you're watching it. And then it comes back later in the movie when he's fighting the two guys that respected him, and they got knives, and he takes out his belt.
And he's just whipping them in the face and shit.
Yeah, and using it, he wraps it on his arm to create an opening where he can like lodge their hand.
Yeah.
And use that against them. It's like, okay, that's why they asked them to put the belt down.
Yeah, it's really cool because they really made us see that the suits are also made for assassins. Like that belt wasn't just a belt. I bet you that the fabric used in that belt is made specifically for whipping and fighting, and it's just really cool just to see all that stuff. And he got a new suit, all black.
Yes,
that was
I
really
like
cool.
that one.
Right from Lawrence of Arabia. All right, man. I think we're getting ready to wrap everything up. What do you think? Is there anything? What else should we talk about?
No, I think we got everything. One quick thing. I feel my biggest surprise with this movie was the level of comedy.
Yeah, they had some comedy in the first and second one. I mean, mainly in the first one, they had a lot of that. Not a lot of it, but it was definitely there, and they bumped it up in this, but it didn't feel out of place.
Oh, it worked.
It worked completely, 100%. It did. It was in style of the movie and with the characters and what they've shown us throughout the trilogy so far. You just made a little bit more of it in this time around, and it was a great accent to the amazing action, because I always feel like comedy is a great mix to have when you have like high action or high horror or high any type of physical reaction watching to a movie. It's always great to laugh afterwards.
No, and I agree, and it accentuated the movie more, made it better. This one was one of my top 5 most anticipated movies of this year.
Yeah.
And I know when the next one gets announced for that year, it's going to be a top 5 most anticipated.
Absolutely. So, let's get into our final thoughts and ratings. What do you think?
Overall rating, I'm going to have to say I'm like at a 9.
I was at a 9 too.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a 9, and I'm not even too sure what would make it a 10. I think maybe just not a better ending. I mean, because they left this off like there's going to be more, but just like, John Wick falling off the roof and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I just felt like maybe it could have had a bigger ending. I don't know.
I guess for me, what probably would have bumped it up is just if it has any weakness, it would be story.
Okay.
Story-wise, the story is very simplistic. There's nothing new. While it was cool, the adventure aspect of it, going into the desert and him declaring his loyalty by cutting his finger, that all ended up being pointless.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
Less than 10 minutes later, he was like switching back. But it was cool. I'm not saying take it out. It was cool. But it say little things like that, tightening up the story, maybe adding a little more to it, might push it to a 10. But
yeah, well, like,
what was the still point? A 9.
Yeah, what was the whole point of that big adventure over there if he just wasn't going to do what that guy was going to say anyway?
Exactly, and it was such a short time frame.
Could have saved himself a fucking finger, man.
Now he's got to go get his ring back.
He's got to go get his ring back. That's the next one. All right, man. Well, I think it's safe to say we love John Wick Chapter 3, and we're anticipating a Chapter 4 because this was so fun. We love Keanu Reeves as an action star. They gave us Halle Berry as a new character, a new action character in this, and we're really excited to see if they continue her story too. So if you guys are listening to us on our SoundCloud or Spotify, travel over to our YouTube channel and see our short films, movie reviews, and we're actually doing Game of Thrones reactions. Even though the season's ending tonight, so who knows when this podcast is going to come out. But you guys can reach us out on Twitter at 2HighMcFly Productions, also on Instagram at 2HighMcFly Productions. Let us know what you guys thought about John Wick and Keanu Reeves and all that good stuff. Until next time, my name is Kevin Lyons.
I am Jose Ramos.
Be excellent to each other.
Yeah.
We like to